Welcome back. I don't know how to intro this here, Jake. It's not welcome back. This is a new. I don't know how to even phrase this. It's a podcast before a podcast. Essentially, we're just recording a pretty much a sit down with Jake and I as we just scroll through the Masters odds for next week. The Masters is next week, so we're gonna scroll through, chat some lines, talk some golfers, and just have a general discussion here. Opposed to we will still have our regular weekly, preview podcast that we do each and every week. That'll come out probably Monday night, maybe Sunday night, depending on when we can get it in there. But yeah, this is just a sit down chat about some lines and just have a general discussion here between Jake and I. But before we do move forward, Jake, you can find some social media.
Yep, you can find me at the Jake Freeman on Twitter. I'll be pretty active for the Masters and all that stuff, but also be sure to join our Discord because that place is going to be popping off once we hit Masters week and all the odds and everyone talking about who their favorite play is and who they're going to be avoiding. And there's definitely going to be some conflicts of interest between people, but all good discussions there. And anyone you have an idea about, even if you want to just put a name in there with no context, I'm sure the conversation will spark without any need to get it going. So definitely join the Discord. We'll have a link in our articles each and every week and also on our Twitters.
Yeah, just hop in there and drop a random name. Doesn't need to be preluded by anything. Maybe drop an emoji afterwards, and I'm sure there'll be, just a page of just chat about whatever we thought you were trying to interpret it here there. But yeah, great place to be. It's gonna be firing off today. I was just throwing out. I was doing some pre-masters uh, work here today, and I was just throwing out random, results of guys and asking who they were. Just a bit of trivia going on there. That was a bit fun this morning. So yeah, just a great place to be, a great community to join for all your not only golf betting but just golf fandom needs. But you can find myself Nate on Twitter at WKF Nate. Be sure to follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. Be sure to visit WeKnowFantasy.com for fantasy baseball, basketball, football, NASCAR, golf, everything in between. We have you covered. The We Know Fantasy podcast network outside of this podcast and the regular Out of the Rough podcast each and every week. We have the We Know Fantasy NASCAR podcast with Kevin and Cody, or Devin and Cody, doing what we do here, just break down the track each week, offer their favorite plays, go through the betting cards and all of that. And they do a very good job and make some money along the way. It's been a very good season to start the season, at least for them. Back to the website, you can find my Out of the Rough article series on there each and every week of the PGA, DP World Tour, as well as LPGA majors. DP's off for about 2 weeks here. Post Masters, will be back. The LPGA first majors later this month. And the PGA is pretty much each and every week. So I have a lot of content there for you. But that's about it for the introduction. So here we go, Jake. It's finally time, man. The Masters, 6 days away for the first day of the Masters, for the kickoff of the Masters. We are recording this on a Friday as the Valero Texas Open is playing in the background. We have Masters golf next week. So basically, what we're going to do here, I just have the odds board loaded. I know you have it too, and let's have some discussion. But obviously, kick it off here, top of the board. Scotty Scheffler, best odds it appears, FanDuel at like 4.3 to 1. Like, who is doing that and why?
No. Definitely a hard steer clear. Majors are extremely difficult, and even though Scotty might have the biggest win equity this week, at 4 to 1, I don't think that he hasn't won enough to warrant betting that number at all. Like Tiger Woods was below that number a couple times, but he was just destroying tournaments left and right. Like Scotty has won what, like 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years. Like maybe if he's done that this season, like I would say, okay, let's go for it. But you know, he won what 3 times last year, now 2 times already this
Yep.
year. I know it's an impressive start to the season, but um 4 to 1 is a steer clear for me.
Yeah, there was a period in the early 2000s when Tiger Woods literally won 50% of his starts. It was like through 48
Yep.
tournaments, he won 24 of them. So, yeah, Scotty Scheffler's not to Tiger Woods level. But yeah, 4 to 1, there's really no need. I mean, unless you got some kind of crazy future. I won't even say crazy. If you got an 8 to 1 or a 10 to 1, even, like, sure. But if you're going to place a bet this week at 4 to 1, just don't, I guess. I mean, I shouldn't tell you guys how to spend your money or what to do, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, again, last week in Houston, his putter went cold again, right? I mean, it wasn't
Right.
completely cold. He did gain a few strokes, but it wasn't what we saw when he was winning the Players, when he was winning the Arnold Palmer, that big spike. So again, going to need it this week. I mean, everyone's out there firing Scotty, a former champion here, 2022 champion of the Masters. I, I I get it and I don't at the same time. Like I
I
feel like
don't.
the tour
Like,
is
would
so wide open right now. Like the talent is so spread out. There's no Tiger Woods. There's no,
right,
someone that far ahead of everyone to warrant a big jump. I mean, second place is John Rahm at 12 to 1 right now. Like,
right. You're telling me that John Rahm has 3 times worse of a win equity than Scotty Scheffler? No. Are you telling me that Brooks Koepka has 5 times worse win equity than Scotty Scheffler? Absolutely not. Like, these guys at much better prices are much better options.
yeah, Brooks Koepka, you mentioned they're 20 to 1. Like the guy took second last year, went on to take down the PGA. Uh, this is what Brooks Koepka does. It's Major Brooks. He shows up when you need
Yeah.
to show up, and that's it. I mean, in the Full Swing documentaries on Netflix, he even admitted like he doesn't really care unless it's a major, and then something switches, and he wants to be here, and he's going to compete. And 20 to 1 is an absolute steal, in my opinion. I mean, I have a future on him at 18 to 1. So, I
Right.
mean, unless he goes in this week on the Live Golf Miami and takes it down, I mean, even without that, I bet that number is going to be 14 to 1 by the time we start, Thursday next week.
No, 100%. I mean, it's tough. I think John Rahm is going to get bet pretty heavily, especially if it's a good week on Live Miami. But yeah, I think Brooks Koepka should very firmly be in the third favored position to like to win the Masters. Very firmly. I don't think you and I can talk about Rory all day, but he
Rory's
has
not
no
winning the
business.
Masters. There's
Right.
no
He
way.
doesn't have any win equity
12
here.
to
And
1
at
here.
12 to 1, it's stupid. Stupid. That's like a steer clear. And look, if Rory beats you at the Masters that he hasn't been able to get in all of his in his entire career to get the career Grand Slam, you just have to tip your cap, right? It's not worth a 12 to 1 bet by any means.
Yeah, Rory, I mean, the last 4 years here, miscut last year, a second in 2022, a miscut in 21, a T5 in 20, T21 and 19, and T5 and 18. So I guess if the trend continues, he's in line for a top five performance this week. But again,
Right.
there is a mental hurdle to this as well, that he is trying to get to an elite group of golfers, the best to ever do it with a career Grand Slam. There are very few golfers in that category, and Rory is right there. And I think there's too big of a mental hurdle for him to jump, as he's been, close so many times before and never been able to do it.
He's hungry, right? He's going to want it more than anyone else in this field, you could argue. But like you said, I don't think he's going to cross the finish line. But I was just checking a few different sports books to see if this market came out, because I think that this is going to be a good discussion. They usually have a market for top debutant at the Masters, and I'm licking my chops between Wyndham Clark and Ludwig Aberg. I don't think either of them have played the Masters before, so they're probably going to top that market. If you had to pick one of them to win as a top debutant to have a top finish, who would you take there?
Uh, I mean, for one, let's talk about it. It's kind of insane that Wyndham Clark has never played the Masters, and the guy won the U.S. Open just a
Yeah,
year ago. Like that's a bit insane. But yeah, it would be Wyndham Clark, easy for me. I mean, I don't think there's a debate, in my opinion. Wyndham Clark has had both Wyndham, or not the Wells Fargo Championship, the U.S. Open last year that start the season second to, or win at AT&T Pebble Beach, a second at the Arnold Palmer, a second at the Players. I think he's a top five player on tour right now, in my opinion. And I don't think Ludwig Aberg is anywhere close. And, I'm not the biggest Aberg fan, or Alberg, or however you properly pronounce that, uh,
Oberg.
Oberg, or whatever it is, right? But yeah, I mean, it's Wyndham Clark for me. But I mean, I feel like that odds is going to be a 4 to 1 in that market for Wyndham Clark, right? I don't feel like it was going to be anything worthwhile.
Right. I think it's probably going to be like a 4 or 5 to 1 for the favorite, and then like a 7.5, 8 to 1 for the runner up. And I'm hoping Aberg is at that 8 to 1 number, 7.5 to 1, because I am licking my chops to take him over Wyndham Clark. Obviously, experience at this course is super important, and neither of them have it. So that kind of draws them on a level playing field. So when you just look at their course, like what game they bring week in and week out, Wyndham Clark is not accurate off the tee. That's where he generally struggles. And Aberg, that's where he excels, long and accurate off the tee. And I just think that that's going to play more into Aberg's hand at the Masters to, be the top debutant. So obviously, depending on odds, we'll see what comes out to market. But if I'm getting 7.5, 8 to 1 on Aberg to be top debutant, I'm taking my chances that, Wyndham Clark might not have his best week, and that, that's a pretty juicy number to get on Aberg. And I know you posed that question on Twitter. I don't know what the result ends in shaking or ended up shaking out to be between Aberg and Rory, who has bigger win equity this week. But my vote was cast for Aberg. If that wasn't abundantly clear from our podcast the week before.
Doesn't say I was right there with you. I was just trying to scroll. Yeah, so it actually of 84 votes, it was Edberg, right? So he 52%. So it was rather close. I mean, it would probably
Close.
yeah, but same thing there. But yeah, look at the open market. Wyndham Clark 28 to 1. Again, we mentioned how important uh past history is here, playing here before, and a debutant at 28 to 1. It's hard to get behind, right? I know we've seen some good performances
Yeah,
of debutants. Tom Kim last year with a top 20 performance. We saw it with Will Zalatoris his first year here
Zalatoris.
around. It happens, but getting across the finish line here is darn near impossible. I mean, look at we saw a aging, struggling Tiger Woods take this down in 2019, 2018, whatever
Yep.
year that was.
19.
So I mean, it just goes to show that if you know where you need to place your ball, where you need to place your ball, it goes such a long way. And I think the stat is Augusta National is the number one course on tour when it comes to course history. It's like Augusta National. I'm not going to embarrass myself and try to list the other ones, but Augusta National is either one or two on that list for sure. So I mean, the course is set up the same way each and every year. The whole locations are the same each and every year. So having the knowledge of what you need to do goes such a long way. And that's why, someone like Wyndham Clark at 28 to 1, it may seem a bit enticing to me, but I don't think I'm going to go there. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, no, I'm steering clear of all debutants. Like, if I was excited about one, it would be in that debutante market that we usually see the
Mhm.
week of. But, you know, I'm not taking a 28 or 30 to 1 guy, who's hasn't seen this course before, because it's just, again, it hasn't, I'm like, we look into trends and it just hasn't been done enough, or really at all for that matter, like in recent history, to warrant a bet on someone at that low of odds. I'd rather take, you know, looking more towards the middle of the board, like you're having some of these experienced guys who've played Augusta multiple times at much better odds. So I'm steering clear.
Yeah, let's jump back up to the top of the board with like a Xander Schauffele. So he has some
Yeah.
impressive results here. A T10 last year. I know he missed the cut in 22, but a T3 in 21, T17 in 20 COVID year, a T second in 2019. He's been knocking the door, a second, a third, a top 10, three top 10s, four top 20s in the last 5 years. I know the knock, right, for Xander Schauffele is he can't get it done in the big one. Hasn't won a major, and
Yeah.
he blew it away at the Players, which is the fifth biggest tournament of the year. Do you honestly believe there's anything behind that, or do you just think it's just been the stroke of bad luck, or the counter great play on the other end?
I think we see a lot of great players with really incredible golf games just not be able to get over the finish line as much as they should have. And I think Xander and probably Cantlay headline that together. It's so hard to bet a guy like Xander, right? At 20 to 1. He's a great golfer. He's going to give you a Sunday sweat. And he should be in a position to win on Sunday, right? But he just does not get over the finish line enough for me to bet him. Like, especially at 20 to 1, like I'd rather take Brooks Koepka at 20 to 1, where I
Oh my gosh,
know,
yes,
again, like
100%. That's insane.
look, we've been saying it, right? We've been saying it the past few weeks with Akshay. We know by hole 3 what week we're getting with this player. And I can argue Brooks is the same exact way. By hole 3, 5 or 3 to 5, like, what Brooks you're getting. Are you getting the head down, grinded out Brooks who's gonna, be there on Sunday, or are you going to get the Brooks that's just imploding and is done by Thursday afternoon and just plays Friday out of courtesy? So at the odds, I can't warrant a bet on Schauffele, but in that top 10 market, top 20 market, I could totally be on board with the Xander Schauffele play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I don't think there's a truth, I guess, behind someone like Xander not being able to win a major. I mean, he's still rather early in his career. He's in his 20s,
Right.
later 20s at this
He
point.
just
He's like
turned
20.
30. Yeah.
Did he? Okay, so he's right there. I mean, he's still in the entering the prime of his career, essentially. I mean, at this
Right.
point, we see, the primes coming earlier and earlier with a lot of these guys. And he was one of those guys that really burst on the scene and, became a top 10 guy right away, that type of talent. But again, as you mentioned, someone who hasn't been able to get over the finish line at 20-1, especially when you have Brooks Koepka right there. I mean, what do you think about Jordan Spieth right here at 21-1? I mean, the golf has been awful, but when it comes to Augusta, it's kind of hard to ignore him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, it's a guy who, if you're going off of course history, which is super important this week, he's to the top of the board, right? Like if you
There's a
weigh
reason
that
he's
heavily in
here.
your model, right? Like 2015 winner, littered in top five. He has more top five finishes than he doesn't at the Masters. So again, with the recent form, it's just there's a lot of like different guys that I think it will get to the middle of the range into the 50s. That's where I'm going to be playing a lot of my cards. I'm bursting at the seam to talk about it. But, some of these guys in the 50s, you can't argue that they have, half the win equity of Jordan Spieth at the Masters. I know that his history says otherwise, but given the current form, there's some of these other guys that I'm bursting to play.
Yeah, a few more of these other guys up top here. I mean, Hideki Matsuyama playing some amazing golf at 25 to
Yeah,
1 coming into this week. He's going to be, former champion
past
here. He's
winner.
got some great performances as well. I mean, 2021, what he was able to do, like in the face of extreme racism against Asians, just to go out there and claim the
Yeah,
Masters, like goosebump type of stuff, right?
yeah,
Insanity what he was able to do there. And 25 to 1, honestly, like that number. I don't think there's a problem with 25-1 for a past champion with other great performances here, and as well as he's playing golf this season. 25-1 seems like a great number here for him. But then we get into some more interesting guys. Joakim Niemann, 27-1, right? The live guys are coming into here. We have Bryson DeChambeau, 35-1. Another interesting one, in my opinion, Cam Smith, 36-1. I think that's great value. Let's look at what he's
yeah,
done here in the past. Cameron Smith, T34 last year. Okay, throw that out. T3rd in 22, T10 in 21, T2 in 2020. Right? No, this is
yeah.
arguably the world's best golfer of the ball. I'm not golfer. Yeah, of course. World's best putter of the ball. I mean, again, he hasn't been playing great golf. We talked about this, what he did, starting the season off in the fall with the Australian swing and laid an egg there. And I don't keep up the most with Live, right? But from what I understand, he's not been playing great golf there either. But this is a former the Open champion. This is one of the top players. If you were to keep him on the PGA Tour, this would be a top 5 guy, a top 10 guy on the PGA Tour at this point. So a 35-1, maybe that's a good number with his form helping us out here coming into the Masters. And course history, everything's there for Cam Smith.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was one of the biggest Cam Smith fans when he was on the PGA Tour. I rode that hot season. I hit a bunch of outrights with him. So I'm forever indebted to him, and I have a soft spot in my heart for him for sure. But, you know, we don't watch live golf per se, and not a lot of people do. I think the number is a fair one. I think the next best odds are like 28. So, pretty big jump. Like if you want that 36, you're getting 8 points of value right away off the bat. So my guess is that he's going to finish around that 30 to 35 to 1 mark. So, 36 is obviously better than that. So if you want to do it, you can. But I want to talk about another live guy who's close to here in Dustin Johnson, a past winner who's playing some better golf than Cam Smith is on the live tour. So he recently won Live Las Vegas, which is pretty fitting for Dustin Johnson. But I think his major history and his Masters history warrants him as a better play than Cam Smith, and you're getting a few more points of value on him. So he's at 38, and then his next best is at 33. Definitely some food for thought. What do you think?
Yeah, looking back here, I know T48 last year, but again, T12 and 22, a win in 20 during that COVID year, T second in 19, T10 in 2018. I don't think the Dustin Johnson of that just went to live was the Dustin Johnson we'd want to bet when it came to this, but it's been a few years now. And again, the course history, he's still an elite talent and just won recently on the live tour, which again, I'm not a big live fan. I don't like live at all, but I have to understand that there is still a collection of world class golfers over there that he is besting in winning an event. So I do like the value there. And again, we've been proven with Phil Mickelson with a T2 here last year. Like Phil Mickelson has looked like absolute dog garbage on Live this year, and even last year, and then bounces back with a T2 just because the course history is there. So I do like that. I do like that, and I like the argument that with the value. I mean, Bryson DeChambeau at 35 to 1, not touching that number. I'd much rather a Dustin Johnson, just a few places down there, 38 here. So yeah, right there with you. I mean, the live guys are just going to be so hard to try to manage. We do this with majors. Last year was
Right.
the first time of trying to navigate this odd market, and we saw one of them get across the finish line with Brooks Koepka at the PJ, but I guess we'll see this year. Right now, I wanted to bounce back here to your guy Will Zalatoris real quick before we move.
Yep.
And 32 to 1. I have a future on 44 to 1, so I'm happy to see that number. He had that stretch earlier this season where it looked like Will Zalatoris is back. Now, with his last few starts, it looks like the Will Zalatoris we're worried about. What do you believe we're going to be getting on the Will Zalatoris on Masters weekend?
It's crazy to say because he only has 2 starts at the Masters, but
They're good
it looks
starts.
like he's pretty comfortable there, right? Like a solo second in his debutante year and then a T6 in 2022. Like something about this course just fits his eye. And I know that he was playing much better golf leading into it, but he didn't play he played the Texas Children's Houston Open, did not play well. But he took this week off. I'm sure he is at Augusta getting practice rounds in and getting his work in because he knows that, this is a big tournament for him. And, look, am I gonna bet him? Yeah. There's I can't not. But, from a more non-biased standpoint, like, do you think that he's going to get across the finish line this time coming in off this bad form? It's probably more likely than not that he is not going to win. But, I'm a homer for him. He's one of my favorite golfers. He has great course history. He did show signs of life to start this year. And, I think 30s are fair on Will Zalatoris. You got him at 40s. That's even better. So I can't get away from him. It's one of those, it's
Excuse
a
me.
biased question, a biased answer, but I can't get away.
Yeah, that year that he took a second in his debut, had him on the betting card. I think he had a share of
Yep.
the lead or the lead going in the weekend, and I cashed out, made a few dollars on him there. So, that's where my kind of I'm not as big of a Will Zalatoris fan as you are, but I'm still a Will Zalatoris fan. And I want to see him succeed. I mean, had him placed on a bet last year before he withdrew on Thursday morning. And things like that. But yeah, I think it's fair here with course history and everything like that. And of course, just the fact that he's Will Zalatoris is going to drive his number down as well. He's one of those fan favorites that, someone like a Ludwig Aberg, someone along those nature that's just going to draw a shorter odds just because of their name alone. For that, just a few more guys around here. Justin Thomas, 34 to 1. And then
If I
we
told you at the beginning of the year that Hovland was going to be in the 30s at the Masters, would you have believed me? Because I
No, yeah,
wouldn't.
I just completely skipped over. Say with Victor, if you told me Victor Holland and Patrick Cantlay would be 31 and 32
Right.
respectively for the Masters, I'm not touching Hovland with a 1,000-foot stick this week with that around the green play as important it is at the Masters with those runoffs. Man, there's 0%
God.
chance he's in competition or contention the weekend.
Yeah.
And Patrick Cantlay just looks completely lost. I don't know. We've had the argument in our Discord about his involvement with the players committee here for the PJ and how much time and effort is taken away from him. He had a 5-stroke lead going in the weekend at the Genesis and blew that. Like, again, there's a reason why 2 of the top 5 names in the PJ Tour, 2 of the top 6 maybe, are down here in the 30s, and that's definitely that. All right, let's keep moving on here, Jake. I don't know how long we've been doing this, maybe 25 minutes, but into the 40s here, we're gonna start getting some interesting stuff happening for us, right? Matt
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick, 40 to 1. Seems like some great value in my opinion, Jake.
Yeah. No, I love Matt Fitzpatrick. I love his game that he brings. He generally shows up to big events too, which is what I
Oh my
like to
gosh, yes.
see. Um, hasn't had like a huge performance at the Masters. I mean, he has a couple,
T10
T10
last year,
last year was good,
T14 the year before.
T14 the year before, and
What I
then
like
kind of
about
a
him,
fall off. But
I'm
yep,
sorry to jump in here, but what I like about him is the steady improvement from his first, outside of a T20. So starting in 2020 is what I'm looking at here. T46 next year, T34 next year, T14 next year, T10. So he's shown improvement and he's cracked that top 10. And, since then, he's gone on to be one of the top 10 players on the tour, maybe the world. Hard to debate there, but he's won a major already. He's been there. He's won big events, and a 41 number. I mean, for a guy that's a world class, approach player, world class ball striker, and a former major winner on top of that. I mean, he's the type of guy that
Yeah.
the pressure and all that's not going to get to him just because he's so dialed into everything he does with the writing down of every single shot and how meticulous he is about his golf game, that if it comes down to a Sunday and he has to make a shot to win the major Masters, he's one of those guys I would trust, honestly.
Yeah, and he packs a really good short game. Very good
Yes.
short game. One of the best putters on tour. The last time we saw him was at the Players. I know he's playing the Valero right now. I think he's like T20 as we speak, but if he keeps that form up, I don't think that 40 is going to hang around. If we get a
No.
T10 this week from Fitzpatrick, so he's one of those guys that if you're eyeing him at the 40 number and he looks to be having a solid week this week, you should probably jump on that shoot sooner than later.
I mean, I prefer Matt Fitzpatrick over Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Patrick Cantley, Victor Hovland. I'd argue Ludwig Aberg, Joakim Neiman. Like, these are names ahead of him that I would trust more to win this tournament or I trust Matt Fitzpatrick to win the tournament more than.
The only name I'm saying no to with that is Justin Thomas. I would still take Justin Thomas over Matt Fitzpatrick. I think it's close, but outside of a miscut last year for Justin Thomas, his worst finish in the previous 6 years was a T22. So he plays his course well. I know it's been, again, similar to who did we talk about who had like Zalatoris, two crappy weeks in a row. Valspar and the Players, Justin Thomas played crappy, but before that, he was one of the hottest players on tours. So if he can find that, beginning of the season form, I liked it this week.
All right, let's talk about a few more names here before we start kind of spreading things out, just to compile some things. Tony Finau, good player at the Masters. I don't think the win equity is there, but if we're talking a top 20, a top 10 market, Tony Finau has done rather well here. T26, T35, T10, T38, T5, and T10. So 3 top 10s in the last 6 years. Again, this is a Tony Finau that we see struggle often, especially with that putter, which I don't know how he hasn't figured to keep that thing flat yet. Maybe someday, but a 44-1 there. And then another surprising name, Collin Morikawa, 48-1. What do you make of that, Jake?
That's a crazy number. And look, the two biggest big game hunters are on LIV in Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka, where every major they show up to, they're teeing the ball up and they're having a good finish. I'd argue current players on the PGA Tour, Morikawa is probably towards the top of that list in big game hunters. He missed the cut at the Open last year, but then played pretty well in the other majors. He's just a big T10 solo fit, T8 1. It almost feels like an auto bet.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, they're just one of those names that you see down here at 48-1. You're just like, just the name value alone kind of attracts you. But yeah. And then here's a name that I know you've been talking a decent amount of recently, and that's Max Homa to kick off the 50-1 market. Are you still on Max being a potential major winner this season?
So I want him to, right? That's where my heart is. But, again, similar to Schauffele, like, is it a mental thing? Is it, just not being able to get over the finish line enough? But, this week also, like, I know he's having a solid week at Valero, but he just has some wayward drives that are just get completely lost and put him into a lot of trouble. So I'm a little concerned from what I'm seeing the week before. I think 50-1 is more than a fair number on an elite golfer. So, if you want to back that number, I think that that's fair, but I'm a little nervous from what I'm seeing this week for next week at the Masters.
For sure. I'm right there with you. I don't know if the Masters is the one for him to do it, right? I mean, I don't know if it's the best fit is what I'm trying to say here with his golf game. I mean, if we were going to do a US Open possibly, or even the Open, I think I would trust Max Homa more to take down than the Masters. But, one more name here, then we'll start spreading things out and kind of just pick and choose what we see down the board here. And it's your boy Sahith Theegala, right? Debut last season, had a fantastic performance. What was it?
He had a solo 9, so top 10 finish for him.
Yeah, in your debut season, can't go wrong there. But what is wonderful about Sahith is the around the green magic he brings along with a good putter, and that's what wins the Masters, right? the runoffs we talk about constantly, all of that. You need a good around the green. That's why Jordan Spieth has been so good here in his career. Those type of golfers who are able to work around the greens have proven success here. So top 10 in your debut. What's your belief here on your boy Sahith?
He's going to get an outright ticket from me. I was hoping for a little bit of a bigger number. I was hoping for 75s, but 50 it's fair, right? He brings the game that could win at Augusta, like you said. So it's one of those. Again, he was getting a bet from me no matter what. It's a little bit of a biased answer for me. I think he definitely has the possibility to win, but I would not be surprised with a solid finish of a T10, T15 this week at the Masters coming in. Second time seeing it, very important. So, just look to improve on his previous play. And, he's had a good start to the year. T9 at the Players is, a good performance. So I'm excited to see what he brings this year.
Yeah, and I keep saying this, but another guy here, we have Shane Lowry, who has proven results here at Augusta 50-1. I'm not sure where you stand on him. Sam Burns at 55. Tommy Fleetwood, I don't think you touch at all, 55-1. Cam Young, same thing, 60-1. Leave that one there. Then Jason Day, 60-1. That's another interesting name, right? He has a game that can win here. Let me just see what he's done in the past. I have it all right here if I can load Jason Day. T39 didn't play in 2022. Cut T5 T20. All right, I guess it's not the greatest, right? But again, Jason Day is a completely better or a different golfer than he's been in the last 5 years of his career. One last
For
year in the
sure.
season, a resurgence of sorts. I think that's a decent number. I mean, I'd trust him more than Min Lee at 65-1. I don't think there's no place in the world for Min Lee to be at 65-1, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have an outright ticket at 80. I took it at the beginning of the year. I was
Okay.
expecting to see Minwoo a little bit more and in some good form. So I didn't get either of those things. So I'm not too happy about my 80. I know that there's some closing line value on it, but I was hoping to see a little bit more from him. I didn't get it, but I'm holding the ticket strong and, hopefully it gives me a little
Yeah.
bit of a sweat. You never know.
Yeah, the approach play has been pretty bad from Minwoo this season to really get it
Yeah.
done. And then we'll, if at any point there's a guy that I'm skipping over you want to talk about, just interject here, Jake. But I'm
Yeah.
moving down here to Corey Connors at 80-1. This is the guy that kind of gets a lot of the butt of a lot of jokes, right? Just because he's such a god awful putter. And but what he does, he's one of those guys I presented in the Discord earlier, just gave a list of past results and told the guys to name this golfer. I mean, miscut last year, but part of that, a T6 in 2022, T8 in 2021, and T10 in 2020. Three straight top 10 performances here at the Masters for Corey Connors before that miscut. Throw that out 80-1. What's your belief there?
Again, he's another one of those guys that if you think he has a chance to win, you take that 80 and you run right now because, he's playing a tournament that he's awfully comfortable at. I haven't really checked where he's at. Let me see, but you
Yeah,
know,
two-time winner of the
yeah,
Valero Texas Open.
he's at even. Yeah, he's at even, projected to make the cut as we speak right now. So if you want that number, he's going to be playing the weekend. So I assume it's going to drop pretty heavily for me. There's a lot of other guys I'd much rather bet on. I just can't trust the putter, right? If Connors is not the guy you want holding the stick.
Yeah.
So I can't do it. I can't mentally do it. And he's one of those guys that, he brings a game that can win here, but if he beats me, hats off to him, but I will not be backing him.
All right, so I'm going to move on to a guy that I don't want to back, but I will be backing. He will be on my outright card, especially if it sticks here at 80-1. I mean, I probably could have gotten 100-1 if I would have jumped on things a lot earlier, but that's Patrick Reed, right? I don't want to do it. Don't like the guy. No one likes the guy, right? Unless you're just trying to prove a point, one of those guys, right? T4 last year, throughout the T25 and 22, I mean, still mid cut. T8 and 21, T10 and 20, T36 and 19, a victory in 2018. Patrick Reed plays this golf course better than arguably anyone else. And I hate to say it, but if you have someone with this much of course history here, T4 last year, don't forget, at 80-1, you take that number. I think losing Jake here. I think my internet connection may have been a little
Uh,
funky.
I think I'm back.
There you are.
Can you hear me? Cool.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, Patrick Reed is one of those guys. When you get deeper down the board and you're getting at some of these bigger numbers, you have to ask yourself, can they actually win the Masters, or do I just like this player? Patrick Reed, you could argue, is the opposite of that question of I freaking hate this guy, but he could actually win here, and I'm getting, 80 to 1. So it's one of those that, again, it almost feels like an auto click. I can't do it because I just hate him so much. But if you care to think, at these odds, he has the win equity.
He does for sure, and that's my argument with him. And I want to jump back here. We skipped over Brian Harman at 66 to 1. I mean,
Yeah.
the Open champion, playing some great golf, T2 at the Players. Like, he has a game that can win here too. He's a very, very good scrambler, elite in the scrambling, comes with a decent putter, good approach play. I really 66 a good number on him as well.
Yeah, lefties here too feast. For
Yes.
some reason, this course is just made for lefties. And look, I'm not saying anything because I'm holding my tickets so tight for the Valero, but there's a lefty in first place that I am praying gets into the Masters field with a win. And I will
Uh-oh.
be betting him no matter what. I don't care. He's been playing so freaking well. Debutant year. If I get triple digits, it's in. But back to the course of business here. Brian Harman, lefty, packs a good short game, like we said, has some decent finishes here in 2021. He had a T12. He missed the cut in his previous 2 years, so not so great, but we could argue he's 10 times the player he was.
Oh, yes.
So I like the number, right? It's one of those, it's tasty. I just have to see if there's room in my budget. And let me emphasize
Yes,
how important
that's
it
the
is to
thing.
line shop. You have to line shop because here on Brian Harman, there's a 66 to 1 out in New York, and there's also a 35 to 1. That is a huge, almost double difference. So please make sure that you are checking all the books that you have access to get the best number you possibly can.
Yeah, because even the difference between the top to the second, 66 at MGM, they were going to 55 at FanDuel. So there's still, if you're betting $10 units, it's $110 you leave on the table if he is to go on to win.
Right.
And then we move on here to another guy I heard you mention before we kicked it off here, 90 to 1 Russell Henley.
Yeah, I got him at 110 this morning. I know that number's tanking because he had a really good outing today, but his history at the Masters, when I looked it up quickly before firing it away, kind of took me by surprise. In his last 5 appearances, he has a 21st, a T11, a T15, a T30, and a T4 last year. He brings a great short game. He's elite with the irons. He's extremely accurate off the tee. Look, is the win equity there for Russell Henley on any given week? That's up in the air, let alone the Masters. You just got to hold your breath. But he profiles super well. And at 110, I couldn't help myself but click.
Yeah, if Russell Henley were to win the Masters, it'd be the most boring Masters champion of all time. I'd make the argument. Just as boring as a man plays golf, just straight down the fairway, chip it on, putt. Like, there's nothing really
Yep.
exciting about the world's most accurate golfer, the the driver essentially. But yeah, I mean, again, I just feel like he's the type of guy that can win any course at any time. Just because of how the scrambling numbers are usually good. The accuracy is always there. He's always good with the approach, and the putter he's halfway decent. So, I mean, I see that argument as well. But there's a guy right behind him that'll be getting probably a little bit of my budget, and that's Tom Kim. We saw him in the debut last year and fired off a top 20 performance, T16 to be exact. Got that debut out of the way. I know the recent form hasn't been amazing for my boy Tom, but just like you with Will's Outdoors, was Heath Thagala. It's one of those things I have to be on Tom Kim. If Tom Kim is to go on
Yeah.
to win a major and he's not on my betting card, I'll never forgive myself. I've bet
Right.
the man hundreds of times throughout his career. I back him all the time, make these arguments of how good he is. And then if I'm going to be one to sit here and he wins the Masters of all things and I don't have a ticket in my hand, I'm going to be slapping myself for years to come.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about the two guys you said before. It's one of those, right? Like Tom Kim hasn't been playing the best golf ever this year, but at the number, what's a few dollars, right? Like it's one of those peace of mind bets, I like to say. It's one of those that if you have the ticket, you could sleep easy at night. If you don't have the ticket and he wins, I don't know if I'd ever be able to sleep again.
I love that argument right there. Like you said, a few dollars, what's it going to, like you said, if he doesn't win on Sunday, you go to bed. Who cares? You don't
Right.
place
You
the
make
bet for a few dollars. At $5, you're winning $500, $5, $500, and you don't place your favorite golfer, and you fall asleep that night. You're not falling asleep.
right. And look, we look at the other card, we run our models, we make, extremely strong, logical decisions, but there are always those few guys that stick in
You
your
have
heart
to.
that you
I mean,
have to just bet. And everyone has them. Look, I have friends that are like, oh, I love uh who like Tony Finau. People are homers for Tony Finau. The guy never crosses the freaking finish line unless it's a jabroni tournament. So, there are people who are Homa. Look, I love Homa. And is there a chance he gets a bet from me? Yeah. But he hasn't done anything in majors. So there's a lot of these hometown people that just feel so good in your heart to bet. Cam Young, who hasn't won on tour, people bet him week in and week out, and he just doesn't do it. But, peace of mind bet.
yeah, if we were to do this right and not have fan favorites from us personally, like it would
Yeah.
just feel too much like a grind. Every Monday I wake up early, I run my models, I place my bets, I write my article, do the podcast, and just rinse and repeat. Like it's just going to take the fun, the allure, all of the the pleasure, I guess it would give me if I don't have my guys, my Tom Kims of the world, the Siwoo Kims, those type of guys, my Colin Morikawas, guys like that, that I just, when you look at the leaderboard, if you haven't been paying attention, you look at your guys on your betting card, but it's also where's Tom Kim at? Where's Colin Morikawa?
Yeah.
Those type of guys. Like you're looking for your guys, and like you said, if it wasn't for these type of guys, it would take some of the fun out of doing it. And yeah, that's just my little spiel there. But yeah, let's keep moving on here. I guess we're technically into the long shots, right? There's not going to be
Yeah.
much beyond this. I mean, Tom Kim 101 has real win equity, right? There's a
Yes.
potential that someone like Tom Kim can win this event, top 20's debut. It'll be if the putter shows up. I mean, everything else about his game is going to be there. If the putter shows up, it'd be a thing. I mean, even someone like Siwoo Kim at 101. I mean, there's
Yeah.
potential win equity there as well. It'd be hard, but the approach play is always there, accurate, plays well-rounded golf, and he's won the Players before. He's won big tournaments, and I mean, we start looking at names beyond that. Are we going to trust Steven Yeager to win the Masters over a Siwoo Kim or a Tom Kim? Are we going to trust Ricky Fowler to finally get it done? No.
No.
Sungjae Im, another interesting number here. Okay, let's bounce back to Sungjae here. 110-1. Another guy I posted in the Discord this week. Sungjae, T16 last year, T8 and 22, throw out 21 with a missed cut, but T2 in 2020. So we're looking at a guy with 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s in the last 4 years at 110-1. Again, form isn't ideal for Sungjae Im, but this is a type of tournament where form may not necessarily be the end all. You come here, you've played here, you have good performances. Sungjae, elite with the irons when he is. And again, I'm going with this argument that you have to share, book share. 110 on FanDuel right now, 80 on the other books here available in New York State, right?
Right.
So
Big
110-1.
difference.
Yeah, I mean, we're just looking at guys that could potentially win the Masters. Sungjae can do it. Then you have someone like Adam Scott. I know a lot of people like Adam Scott, right? Is Adam
That's who
Scott?
I'm bursting at the seam to speak about. Like previous winner,
Yeah, he's not that. When was it?
2013, 13.
13. Yeah, I mean, before then you start going beyond Adam Scott will bounce back there, but you got Tiger Woods at what is that, 125-1?
Yeah.
There's 0% chance in the world. There's probably a 0% chance he even finishes the tournament, right?
Yeah.
Withdrawal last year, we saw him. Did no, he was supposed to play the Genesis, or he played the Genesis, missed the cut, withdrew because he had the flu.
Yeah, he withdrew.
Or whatever he had going on there. I mean, then we start getting real sketchy. Justin Rose, 130-1. I don't think I'm playing Justin Rose to win the Masters. Benny On, never crossed the finish line. What's he going to do at the Masters? Harris English, Sepp Straka, Eric Van Rooyen, Phil Mickelson, Eric Cole. We're going down. But before we do get any further, let's jump back to your Adam Scott argument. Former winner here. I mean, this is a tournament that Australians have done rather well at. I mean, there's only been one in history to do it, and that's been Adam Scott. But I mean, you've had Mark Leishman have a very good career here at Augusta, and some other names along him. But yeah, Adam Scott. Let me load his thing up. T39 last year, T48, 54, T34. So, I mean, it's been a while since he's been relevant here, but a T18 in 2019, T32 in 2018. You mentioned a winner in 2013. Again,
Here's my thing. He's made the cut in 14 straight Masters appearances. That's good
that's
enough for me to back at some great form, right? Like throw out the last 2 weeks. He's a T20 this week at the Valero. And before that, his worst finish was a T20 in the 7 weeks before that. So he's playing some good golf. He's, played this multiple times, previous winner, 120 to 1. That number is going to be well gone by the end of this tournament if Adam Scott makes the cut and plays well here, which he's very much in line to do. So I'm going to jump on that number after we get off this call because the next best is 100 and then 90, then 80. So I see him landing around that 80 to 1 mark for a guy who has legitimate win equity here. So one of those that I'm not going to be able to get away from at that number.
for sure. So, I mean, so we jump beyond Adam Scott. Is there anyone else on this board that could possibly win the Masters? It's really hard. Adam Scott, in my opinion, that 120 to 1, 110 with Sanjay to Adam Scott kind of seems like the end, in my opinion. Then we start getting into debutants. Phil Mickelson here at 170. I mean, we saw what he did last year. I mean, I guess maybe someone like a Nick Taylor at 190 to 1. Little interesting.
It it's interesting, but again, you know, I like to think in the majors, there's such a small pool of players that could actually win. And this year, that pool is expanded tenfold just because of what we've seen through the PGA Tour so far. Like, usually I have a bucket of like 15 players I pick from. This year, the bucket's like 30
Oh
to
my
40 players that have win equity. So, Nick Taylor, some of these, longer shots are not making the cut. I have to draw a line somewhere. I did think about Harris English for a hot second at 150 to 1. He brings a really good short game. He's played here before, but again, the heart says I like him, but the win equity doesn't, so I'm probably going to steer away.
how far removed is Bubba Scott from a potential contention, right? I mean,
Bubba.
280 to 1. I mean, let's see what he's done recently here. Miscut
In in
T39,
live,
T36, 57, T12, T5.
yeah, in live in his last like 10 starts, he has one top 20 finish.
Okay.
So
I think we're
just not, but again, look, bomber, lefty, you never know. Like again, I'm a sucker for lefties at the Masters. We talked about it before. Phil has shown that experience and lefty matters, right? Um, look, I this was a tournament that I always looked forward to betting Robert McIntyre at. I know we backed him last week and that went really poorly. He didn't qualify this year, but it's one of those that for some reason lefties just play this course well. So if you have a favorite lefty in the field, maybe play him as a top 20 play. You never know. Like Bubba Watson, you could argue a top 20, top 40 play. You're probably getting close to even odds at a top 40 with how he's playing. So worth a look.
yeah. So I guess the argument here, if Akshay Bhatia is to win the Valero Texas Open, which he has, control of right now, about halfway through, where do you think he opens up?
It's a good question. I hope that a book slips and gives me at least 150 to 1.
I
I'm backing him up to 100, but I think that realistically he would land at the 80 to 100 mark
you
if
really think he'd get that
if he
high?
were to win.
I mean, I guess
Yeah,
combination
because
of
look,
fan favorite, recent winner, like the form is there.
yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Like it's hard to guess the odds. Debutantes probably steering some of the more serious bettors away, just knowing that, a debutant is very rarely going to win here. Might be more popular in those top markets, top 10, top 20 markets, but yeah, going off of win equity, like if I named Corey Connors, Patrick Reed, Cyril Hatton, Russell Henley, like those guys should be ahead of Akshay in the odds, even if he does win this week.
Yeah, it definitely an interesting place because just the recent memory, people, the memory is so short. He won a week
Yeah.
ago, and there's a guy, in our Discord. His name is what is it, Titanic Gambler. He brought up the
Hmm.
point that there's since it's been 20 some years since the last person to win the week before and then go on to win the Masters, and that was Phil Mickelson like 20 some years ago. So, I mean, if Akshay is to win this week, that's what would put him into the event. But I think the I guess beyond that, how many winners right before the Masters, I guess the Valero, were lefties in this good of form,
Right. And look, I said it before, like favorite lefty narrative, if Akshay doesn't go on to qualify, which would really break my heart, I'm going to be backing Brian Harman. I think that he packs the best lefty short game,
especially at that number.
and right at 66 is for sure good. I'm probably going to take that after we speak too, just because of the huge discrepancy in odds there from 66 to 55 down to 35. Like, where is he going to land?
Yeah,
He's,
that's definitely going to my card. The Masters is such a hard tournament because we can model this all we want with the stats and the form and all of that. But when it comes down to it, in the grand scheme of things, there's 10 golfers who could realistically win this event. Again, if you look at it, there are very few like actual long shots to win the Masters. I mean, if you look at like the top 5 long shots, Hideki Matsuyama's in that list, and he was like 50-1. Like, it's not like anyone's coming out firing at 120-1 to win this. I think Patrick Reed was like 70 or 80 when he won. And then I think Trevor Illman was the longest at like 120. I mean, anything's possible, right?
But it's rare.
It's just a tournament that it's the top guys. They're going to be there. They're going to compete. I mean, again, we look at the board last year. It was a bit interesting with Jon Rahm winning, but you had Brooks Koepka right there top of the list. I mean, Phil Mickelson, that's not top of anyone's list, but the top 5 gave you some interesting names. But realistically, what I'm trying to get at is this isn't a tournament to try to place 6 long shots on your card.
Yeah, no. And look, I think the 35 to 50 range is pretty action packed of like a lot of guys who are good golfers that can win this tournament. Like, Fitzpatrick's at 40. I mean, I'm lumping Homa in there already, but Morikawa at 48. Like, some of these guys are just, they're major champions and they're in the 40s and 50s. Like, that's where I'm going to focus a good amount of my attention. I'm going to play the top of the board for a guy or two, but responsibly, you can't bet every favorite, right? You're going to end up losing money or it's just not profitable enough. But it's very action packed between that 30 to 80 range of some guys that have some legit win equity. So it's going to be a lot of crafting. I'm trying not to finish my card after we have this conversation because it is really tempting to just put all these guys in that I like, but got to give it some due diligence, put in some of the bets that we spoke about that I love and sweet.
Yeah, do you have any futures placed for this event already? I know I have Brooks Koepka. I think I had him at 18-1. I have Will Zalatoris 44-1. And so I did a podcast earlier in the fall with Saw Sports Bets where I placed these futures, and I have a Phil Mickelson at like 130-1, which again, just kind of a waste of money at this point. But through this, I can guarantee you I will have Patrick Reed on my betting card, and I will probably have Brian Harman on my betting card, and that keeps me pretty limited. I mean, futures are so fun because they can go in so many different directions. If you hit them in the right way, getting a guy that's 50-1, then he blows up and he's down to 20-1. Like, those are good, but they're also super risky. Again, you can play someone at 25-1, and then next thing you know, he's 45-1 when he opens at the event. So in the same sense, it can also close your card super early. Like, I have 3 futures. I go and play Patrick Reed and Brian Harman. I'm just about done.
Yeah, and it's hard. Some books don't honor if a guy doesn't qualify or withdraws. They just take your money and don't refund you. You have to be careful. Like, sometimes like Matsuyama, I'm sure a couple weeks ago, you could have gotten a way better number than 25, but also you're holding your breath because every single week we get a notification that it's his back, his arm, his wrist. Like, this guy is banged up. So it's one of those that you have to be really careful. But look, it could be super profitable. You got Zalatoris at 40 something. We are never seeing that next week. Joaquin Niemann, people probably got him at some insane numbers before he was going crazy on Live.
Oh, yes.
If they were 40, paying 50. Attention to it. Right. So it's one of those, it's a fun market. It's a risky market. Personally, I do it very haphazardly. I go, Maybe one or two guys that I think I probably should have been on the Zalatoris number. I don't really know what I was thinking, but I'm on Minwoo 80-1. Not the happiest about it, even though I'm getting some closing line value. And then I'm on Henley 110-1. So I put that in this morning. The number's already dipped, but I'm still vouching at 90-1 that Henley's a good bet. We're getting close to that. 75 is where I start to think like, okay, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. But if you're listening to this and the 90 is still hanging, or if you're seeing anything better, I endorse that play.
All right, Jake, that about wraps up for this podcast. Anything else? Of course, we're still going to have our full Masters preview article in a few days, but anything else you want to add before we hop off here?
No, I think we covered the board top to bottom pretty well.
Yeah, it was definitely was a fun one. We'll see what happens when we do like the US Open and the Open, just because we have, 40 more golfers in the field opposed to what we see at the Masters, right? We have, anywhere between 70 some and 90, whatever the cap number is. So it was kind of easy for us to go through the board just because it's a lot easier than 127 golfers or whatever it is for a major. But yeah, one more time before we sign off, where they can find you, Jake, on social media.
Yep, you can find me at the Jake Friedman on Twitter. I'll post out my Masters Futures plays that I post or that I take after this call, so that way we'll have a condensed list of everything that I've got before, and then after I run my model and stuff next week. But also be sure to join our Discord. Link will be in our Twitters and in our articles. Super fun place to join, completely free. Lots of good Masters talk and conversation. Like Nate said before, he was just dropping random players' recent history in there, and it's a fun game of seeing if you can guess who the player is, and it sparks a conversation of, are they a bet this week or are they not? So be sure to join there too.
Also, be sure to follow our YouTube channel. I think it's Out of the Rough Pod. On Sunday, we will be recording a Masters Jeopardy edition, Jeopardy, I guess, Masters edition, with three guys from Twitter. They're getting ready to rip and roar. I have the board made. I think it's going to be a good of time, so look out for that. And as well, you can find if you're listening to an audio, you can find the video version of these podcasts on there each different week as well. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to follow myself, Nate, on Twitter at WKF Nate. Be sure to follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. And until next time, guys, we'll see you.